Okay. Okay, we're good to go. We're up live in Memorex and everything. So welcome, everyone. I would like to call this April 25th meeting of the City Council of Charleston to order. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Gregg, Councilmember Shealy.
Here.
Councilmember Saccharin. Councilmember Mitchell.
Here.
Councilmember Brady. Councilmember Gregory. Councilmember Waring. Councilmember Seekings. Councilmember Shade. Councilmember Bowden. Councilmember Appel. Councilmember Parker. Mayor Tecklenburg.
Here. And now if you would like to join us, Councilmember Shade will lead us in an invocation and pledge of allegiance.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sunday, we attended the Holocaust Memorial Service at Gilliard. I'm asking Councilmember Appel to join me in reciting a prayer that was drafted by of all conferences, the Catholic Bishops' Conference of England and Wales for the 2023 Prayer for Holocaust Memorial Day. Loving God, you care for each and every human life. All people are cherished as your beloved children, no matter how ordinary or extraordinary their stories are.
Today, we come before you to remember the victims of the Holocaust. We lament the loss of the 6 million Jews who were killed in the Holocaust, the millions of other victims of Nazi persecution, and victims of all genocides.
May our minds be clear and attentive to their memory, and our hearts be moved to bear witness to their lives.
Help us all to turn away from hatred and division and to build a world where genocide is no more.
Strengthen us that we, in our own ordinary ways, may show extraordinary love in the world today. And let us all say, Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have a few presentations and recognitions to make this evening. And to start that off, I'm going to call first for invite Beverly Hutchinson and Kate Prieststack with the D. Norton Center to please join me along with Mindy Sturm. Y'all come on up to the podium if you will. And we had a delightful presentation week before last over at Colonial Lake where we put the pinwheels up. It's a sign of the fact that children should have joy in their lives and nurturing and love. Unfortunately, we bring awareness to everyone that that's not always the case, that child abuse does exist in this world and it happens here as well. And we want to raise awareness and prevent child abuse from happening in our society. So here's the proclamation, whereas South Carolina's 1.1 million children residing in diverse communities across our state, including 80,000 here in Charleston County, are our most valuable resource for the future. Whereas childhood trauma, including abuse and neglect, is a serious problem affecting every segment of our community, and finding solutions requires input and action from everyone. Childhood trauma can have long-term psychological, emotional, and physical effects that have lasting consequences for victims of abuse. Whereas protective factors are conditions that reduce or eliminate that risk. Whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, community, and faith-based organizations, businesses, law enforcement agencies, and families. Whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs and activities that build strong children and families, we acknowledge that we must work together as a community in partnership to build awareness about child abuse and contribute to promote the social and emotional well-being of children and families in a safe, stable, and nurturing environment. whereas prevention remains the best defense for our children and families. And in fiscal year 21-22, sadly, there were 826 children in Charleston in documented substantiated cases of abuse and neglect, 826, right in our backyard. Whereas D. Norton's Children's Advocacy Center works daily to provide help for many of these children so they can heal from their physical and mental wounds in close partnership with local entities. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, along with City Council, proclaim April 23 as Child Abuse Prevention Month. And I'd like to invite Beverly to come forward and say a few words. She's with D. Norton Center, as was mentioned here. And for those who don't know, they do a remarkable job providing resources to kids when they do unfortunately find themselves in trouble. Beverly?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you. Without your support, there would be no D. Norton Child Advocacy Center. There would be 30,000 plus children who would not have received a wonderfully coordinated response to their trauma. I love the prayer that was said, and I'm not going to remember the line exactly, but I'm going to try to paraphrase. Strengthen us all in our everyday ways. That's really what we've been talking about all of April. Each one of us in our everyday lives have an opportunity to prevent child abuse from ever happening, to keep children from coming through our doors, to prevent the abuse from ever happening. And so as we wind out the month, I love being here. It was Mayor Riley and Chief Greenberg and Libby Ralston and Dr. Sarah Shue, who's now gone to God, who believed, the members of the Junior League of Charleston who believed that our community could build a better response to child abuse. And together, as a group, we don't do anything in a vacuum at D. Norton. It's all through collaboration. Together, we have come up with a better response. I dream of a day when there's no child abuse, but until there is, I pray that you partner with us continually so that we have the very best response for the children in our community. I know you believe they deserve it. So thank y'all.
Thank you. Come on. And thank you to Mindy Stern, by the way, who heads the Mayor's Office of Families, Youth and Children, and they work very closely. And just in case council didn't know, or for our new members and maybe those who had forgotten, we are D. Norton's landlord. The building excuse me, a whole $1 a year. We're a tough landlord, I know, but their facility on Upper King Street was provided by the city of Charleston. We're very proud to partner with you and help in any way we can. Thank you for the work you do. So next we have a proclamation recognizing two amazing individuals, both originally from Cornwall, England, who have made Charleston their home. Ben Toll and Charlie Layton, would y'all come forward along with Councilmember Ross Appel? And you know, you'd think in this modern day of transportation that they could find a better way to get back and forth across the water from Europe to the United States, but they decided to do it in a rowboat. These two gentlemen actually rowed across the shore from one shore to the other, from Europe to the Caribbean, and it's an amazing story. So we're here to recognize them for their pretty amazing effort. Whereas the city of Charleston wishes to recognize two inspiring citizens, Benjamin Toll and Charlie Layton, who share a love for food with restaurants in Charleston, Savannah, and Cornwall, England, and have now rowed across the Atlantic. Born April 11th of 1984 in England, Ben moved to the United States in 2006 and was a part of 4 different restaurants in New York before moving south to Charleston in 2015. He and his wife, Kathleen, opened Basic Projects, a lifestyle-driven hospitality and design firm. Benjamin then founded Basic Project Foundation to raise funds for educational organizations in the agricultural and food security sphere. And Charles was born November 8th of 1991. He began working for basic projects at the Ferry Boat Inn in Cornwall, England, and left his home there and came to the United States in 2018 to work as executive chef for Basic Kitchen. So you're a former, it says here, you're a former version of yourself, taking on a healthy plant-based diet. Charles lost more than 100 pounds, and that wasn't too many years ago. So congratulations on that. That's not easy either. Whereas Ben and Charlie convened during the midst of the 2020 pandemic, discussed their lifelong goals, and they found they shared a common goal to row across the Atlantic Ocean and they joined the Talisker Whiskey Atlantic Challenge, a 3,000-mile race between La Gomera, Spain, and English Harbor, Antigua. So on January 21st, 2023, they successfully rowed 3,000 miles from La Gomera, Spain to Antigua, where they ranked first place in the pairs division, completed the row in 40 days, 8 hours and 59 minutes. 40 hours would be something, right? Whereas choosing the Green Heart Project of Charleston as their flagship nonprofit to support throughout the row, Ben and Charles raised over $160,000 to support garden educational facilities to be built in K-12 through 12 schools within Charleston and surrounding areas. We've been a big supporter of Green Heart as well through the Charleston Housing Authority. Whereas the city of Charleston would like to congratulate Ben and Charles on their inspiring feat of rowing across the Atlantic Ocean and thank them for their ongoing leadership in the community. Now therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, on behalf of council, proclaim today is Benjamin Toll and Charles Layton Day in the city of Charleston. There you go, guys. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor and City Council, thank you so much for having us. During this journey, it was a 2-year journey. One of the things I wrote to the mayor before coming here today, that it was really the community that got behind us. We had never rowed a boat. We had never been to sea. We had no idea what we were doing when we signed up for this thing. And it was just an amazing group of people who got together to help us, support us, find a place to put our boat, teach us how to row, get us in shape. And, we carried 500 letters from school children across the ocean. There were some tough days, and letters like that and messages from people in the city of Charleston was really what got us through. And Charlie and I have come back with a sort of a renewed love for the city and feel so grateful to call this home and very privileged to be here today. So thank you all.
Great.
Thank you.
Councilmember Appel brought this.
Thank you.
I meant to mention.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll be very brief. I've known Ben for several years now. I just recently met Charlie, and I just can't tell y'all how unbelievable it is to row across the Atlantic Ocean. I know it doesn't take that much of a leap of faith to understand that. If any of y'all have been on a rower, like an indoor Concept 2 rower, and you've rowed for a 5K or 30 minutes, that's a heck of a workout. These guys rowed 2 hours on, 2 hours off continuously for 40 days. It's unbelievable. It's inspiring. And I hope it inspires each of us in our own way, in our own lives with what we do to go that extra mile, to make that challenge, to hold yourself accountable and to succeed and accomplish great things. And today you're getting a piece of paper and a day named after you, guys. But if you row across the Pacific, we'll build you a statue. So
of Charleston Stage. And now Frank, has come on board to help lead Charleston Stage forward in light of Julian's retirement. The proclamation has a little something to do about that. So, if I may, whereas the city of Charleston wishes to recognize one of its most inspiring and talented citizens, Julian Wiles, founding artistic director of Charleston Stage, which has been the theater in residence at the city of Charleston's historic Dock Street Theater since 1978. That's a minute or two. Whereas majoring in history, Julian Wiles earned his undergraduate degree in 74 from the College of Charleston and a master in fine arts in dramatic art from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Whereas during summers while at College of Charleston, Julian worked at Camp St. Christopher on Seabrook Island, where he discovered his love for theater and working with kids. For his first production, Julian Wiles staged an adaptation of A Christmas Carol in 1978, followed by Carolinianics in 1979, which brought folk tales and the heritage of the South Carolina Lowcountry to life. Whereas the company's first blockbuster presented at the finale of the first season was Seize the Streets, staged in 1979 on top of a city parking garage. And whereas Charleston Stage started as a youth theater called Young Charleston Theater Company, was renamed Charleston Stage in 1998. The apprentice team, or A-team, was created in 1986 to teach technical theater skills to high school students, and the name was later changed to Theater Wings, and currently has over 50 high school students participate in the program each season. Whereas the first major gift came in 1987, a $250 donation. That was a major gift back in those days from Sam Solomon's. Today, Charleston Stage raises over $1 million a year, has a full-time staff of 37 individuals, has performed to over 2 million audience members. And whereas in his 45 years with the company, Julian Wiles has staged over 320 productions involving over 2,000 employees, has written 34 original plays, musicals, and stage adaptations with more than 100 productions of his eight published works performed across the United States and internationally. It's really an amazing story, y'all. Now, therefore, I, John J. Tecklenburg, Mayor of the City of Charleston, also proclaim today, April 25th, as Julian Wiles Day in the City of Charleston.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. One thing you might not know is 45 years ago, the city was very instrumental in the founding of Charleston Stage. Spoleto started in 1977. The Office of Cultural Affairs was created the next year, and Mayor Riley and Ellen Morrill were very supportive in the first couple of years of the company. You guys have made the Dock Street available to us for all of these years. We've been very fortunate to perform in one of the greatest theaters in America. Now we have the West Ashley Theater Center, which is west of the Ashley, where over 350 kids have classes, and we rehearse all of our productions over there as well. As you know, we were shut down for 17 months during 17 months during the pandemic. But we've come back. We have just had the most successful season in Charleston Stage's history, playing to over 65,000 people, including almost 20,000 school kids from around the country. You've been very instrumental with the Dock Street and the great renovations you did. We are very appreciative of the new state-of-the-art LED lighting that will be going in next year. And Frank and Mary Beth Clark, who's our new artistic director, will be taking the company forward for many, many years to come with great production. So thank you very much. And thank you for this proclamation.
I just want to say, Mayor, that we're so appreciative of the Charleston Stage being relocated at Ashley Landing in my district, and the activity that is generated by the number of young people who are attending Charleston Stage and some of the practice sessions as well. Just creates a wonderful vibe in the community and a lot of energy over there. So thank you for being there. Thank you for relocating. It's a wonderful asset for West Ashley that you're there. So thanks for all the work and enjoy retirement.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Judy. All right, without objection from council, I have one other guest I'd like to introduce and have him make just a few comments. I think you all know and remember how last October, I went with Rhoda Green and her son Dwayne and a troop from Charleston to visit Barbados to further the relationship started again by Mayor Riley, I think back in 1996, when we formed a sister city relationship with Speightstown, Barbados, which was the town from which the original settlers and ships that came to Charlestown Landing set sail from. They came from Barbados. They didn't come from Cornwall, England. They came from Barbados in some very real fashion. Historically, we're more like a sub-colony. We were more like a sub-colony of Barbados than we were a colony of Great Britain. So to continue that relationship, we're blessed this week to have a contingent visiting us from Barbados, and they are led by Rudy Grant, who's the Consul General to Miami from the country of Barbados. I'm going to ask Rudy to come forward, introduce his colleagues, and make just a few remarks to us this evening while they're here. Rudy? And Rudy took real good care of us when we were down there in Barbados, I can tell you that. He rolled out the carpet.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City of Charleston Council, members of the public, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let me first of all start by thanking you, Mayor, for this invitation to be here and for the partnership. I'm joined by my consul in Miami, Marvin Brathwaite, from the Consulate General of Barbados. And I'm joined as well with Miss Kay Greenidge, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Invest Barbados. And my name is Rudy Grant. I'm the Consul General for Barbados, based in Miami. In the Consul, we have responsibility for 11 states, and one of those states, Mayor, is South Carolina. I always like to start by making reference to the strong relationship between Barbados and the US. And Mayor, you spoke with respect to a bit of the history. I believe it was the slave code of 1661 that saw a number of persons from Barbados coming here to the Carolinas. I believe the first governor, if I'm correct, of South Carolina,
John Yates.
was a Barbadian of Barbadian descent. And the connection between Barbados and Charleston is certainly very strong. I don't know how many of you are aware that the only place outside of the USA that George Washington visited was Barbados. In fact, in 1751, George Washington's half-brother, Lawrence, he wasn't doing too well, and it was felt that he should go to a place like Barbados. And while in Barbados, George Washington contracted smallpox. And of course, he was able to survive that. In those days, in the 18th century in Virginia, smallpox was not rampant. In the Caribbean, it was an endemic in the Caribbean. And what had happened is that George Washington contracted smallpox. He was able to survive. And in those days, once you survive smallpox, what happened was that you develop an immunity. So when George Washington came back to the USA, and he was leading the troops, while other members of the troops got ill with smallpox and eventually died, unfortunately, because of his immunity, he was not affected. And I start with those things because I think it's very important to recognize the contribution that Barbados has made in a very strong way to where the US is today. Of course, your first president, indeed, your republic is one that is very old, 1776. if my memory is correct, July 4th is the day that you celebrate your independence. Barbados became independent on the 30th of December, 1966. And on the 30th of December, 2021, we became a republic. So we are actually the world's youngest republic. And we've had over the years extremely good relations with the USA. And we are certainly looking forward to continued collaboration and deepening the relationships that we have with the people of Charleston. We believe very strongly that through that collaboration, there can be mutual benefits. Of course, there are many similar issues that we must confront. Our Prime Minister, the Honorable Mia Mottley, has become not only a person who speaks on the global stage with respect to Barbados, but she's become a leader for small island developing states. We are impacted in Barbados by hurricanes in the same way that you are. And we would have initiated what is known as the Bridgetown Initiative. And the Bridgetown Initiative essentially is designed to ensure that poor countries and developing countries are able to access funding with respect to climate change issues. The rich countries of the world are able to access funding at 1% to 4% interest, while poor countries have to access funding at 14%. Some people are referring to the Bridgetown Initiative as similar to the US Marshall Plan. But we believe that it's extremely important to push such an initiative. Climate change is critical and important to us. We, of course, as a small island developing state, tourism too is important to us in the same way that it is to you, Mayor. And during COVID, when we had our significant challenges, we were able to introduce a program known as Welcome Stamp, where we encourage persons to come to Barbados, not only to have fun, but to work as well. So those of you who hear my voice and you want to come to a destination where you can just relax on the beach and do your work at the same time, then Barbados is the ideal place for you. Of course, we are known as well for our culinary delights. And I have to say that when I was here last year, I was given a Bible by the Gullah-Geechee people. And when I got to the hotel and I looked at the Gullah Bible and I started to read it, it read like Bajan. We have a dialect in Barbados known as Bajan, and everything that was in there was something that I could recognize. I know the mayor said that I should be brief, so I will not speak too much longer, but simply to say that we are very excited to be here. Our delegation includes members from the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc. It includes Invest Barbados. Miss Greenidge is the CEO of Invest Barbados. It includes the representatives of the National Cultural Foundation, as well as the Barbados Chamber of Commerce and Industry. The consulate is here to help to facilitate and to see how we could collaborate. But I started by making reference to that 1661 slave code. And Mayor, when you were in Barbados last year, you had the opportunity to meet with our Prime Minister. And during that meeting, Prime Minister said that one of the things that we want to do in Barbados is to collaborate and to work with entities, individuals, countries to ensure that we are able to contribute to the global public good. And I have to say that I listened with great keenness to some of the awards that you gave this afternoon. And I thought to myself when I heard about going rowing across it's the Atlantic that you were rowing. I know that we have had persons in Barbados who have done the same thing. I have to say that takes a bit of brave nature to be able to do that, to row across the Atlantic, and I want to commend you. But I want to end by saying very clearly that we look forward to deepening and strengthening our relationships in a manner that is mutually beneficial to the people of Charleston and the people of Barbados. And we think that this is exciting. And I always say that, you know, business is one thing, talking about trade, talking about investment, talking about pharmaceutical opportunities, because we are encouraging businesses to come to Barbados and produce medicines there, opportunities with respect to universities, any universities here in Charleston. We would want to encourage you to come and set up in Barbados. But the fundamental element and aspect really in relation to business relates to the way that we interact with each other. And I have to tell you that Mayor has been an exceptionally good friend, has made me feel very welcomed here in Charleston. And in fact, when I came here on Sunday, Mayor, someone asked me how I felt to be in Charleston again. And I said, it felt like I was just coming back home. So it feels good to be here. Certainly look forward to our continued collaboration and deepening our friendship. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. So, and if our meeting proceeds as promptly as I think it could, I'll let y'all know they're having a little gathering up the street here. And y'all could spend some more time with our friends from Barbados if you'd like to this evening. So next up is our public hearings. And I think we only have 4 of those. Mr. Morgan will likely present those to us. And one has to do with conference space requirements for hotels that are off of the peninsula. And then we have just a few rezonings. Mr. Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Okay, so as the mayor said, we've got 4 public hearings. The first one is an amendment to our zoning ordinance that would revise the section that relates to accommodations overlays. And the reason it says in the peninsula is it would keep on the peninsula a requirement for conference space, but it would remove it from other parts of the city. And here's the ordinance amendment, and you all have this in your packages. But this was something that came about because of new suburban hotels that have been planned or under construction or recently built that typically have not included conference space. They've typically been smaller hotels, less than 200 rooms. Anyway, this has been through the Planning Commission. There is a development out in West Ashley that would like to take advantage of building a smaller hotel that does not have conference space, but is still a very nice facility. And so that is kind of waiting in the wings, and therefore it is before you all for consideration tonight.
Great. Would anyone from the public like to be heard on this matter?
And Mr. Mayor, we have a sign up list.
Okay,
And did you want to set a time limit?
2 minutes.
All right. Anthony Bryant, the time is 2 minutes.
Mr. Brian, good evening.
I want to piggy on this with Chris real quick. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. I wanted to just piggyback on this zone, the density question from the Union Pier development. And in terms of everything you're doing now, okay, the add density in this area, the city in general is an issue. I'm talking, can I get some order? I'm speaking.
Yes, sir. Please proceed.
Now, what I'm concerned about is the Attorney General of South Carolina has all my comments on his website. So all my public comments I made on Facebook, online, at this meeting is on the Attorney General's website. Anthony G. Bryant. So I want to make sure you know that that's what's there. And then you vote. I want every last one of my public comments from zoning to be sent back to the Attorney General. Every last one of them. I like him to waste taxpayers' money.
Thank you, sir. Would anyone else like to be heard on this matter?
Mohammed Idris, I think you're signed up.
Mr. Idris, did you want to be heard now or at the open period? Open. Yes, sir. All right. Anyone else? Then the matter comes to council. Move approved. Second. We got a motion to approve. This is for first reading only. And any discussion? Councilmember Shade?
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Morgan made comment about this. This is to help with a facility that I don't think technically is in the city at this point, but certainly it is down in the city. And so it has come into the city. So this is really important for that development of that property. I'd urge all our council members to support this.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Waring.
I want to thank staff again. I thanked them in the real estate committee meeting on yesterday, but I thank Mr. Morgan and his team for putting a flexibility in here to accommodate the ebb and flow of business.
Yeah.
This actually subscribes to part of revitalization West Ashley. This is down toward the DuPont Road, Orleans Road, Sam Rittenberg area of not too far from the mall, across from the mall. So up and down the area of the TIF district, frankly. So I appreciate it. Without this, it may not happen. So thank you a lot.
Great. Any other comments, questions? All in favor of first reading, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now, without objection, can we take the next three together? They're all three similar
Annexes.
zonings. All in favor to take them together, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mr. Morgan.
I'll just zip through these. These are all in West Ashley. They're recent annexations, all SR1, all in suburban recommended areas from our city plan. And just some images. These were all endorsed by the planning commission as well. So again, the three addresses are 9 Apollo Road, 19 Oakdale Place, and 1419 Adele Street.
Okay. We've got three rezonings to SR1, single family residential classification. Would anyone from the public like to be heard on these matters? These three addresses are 9 Apollo Road, 19 Oakdale Place, and 1419 Adele Street. All right, hearing none, it comes to council.
Second.
Got a motion to approve. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. That concludes our public hearing for this evening. Thank you all very much. Next is our city council minutes approval for March 28th. Any additions, deletions, corrections? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up is our citizens participation period. We've got a few folks signed up.
We have 7 people signed up.
Okay, we'll do a couple of minutes each then.
All right, the time is 2 minutes.
See you.
Anthony Bryant. Mohammed Idris.
Mohammed? Oh, Mr. Bryant?
I was in a public hearing for the City of Charleston Police Department. Now, the Attorney General deals with human trafficking, domestic violence, computer crimes, all kinds of stuff. Now, the question becomes this: what if he's wrong about that? What happens if he's wrong? In the county jail, we need to do a moment of silence for 6 poor people in jail who didn't get care. Not a moment of silence. Not one because they were poor and they wasn't important. So therefore, my work's gonna be on Innocence Project. I want to make sure that the Attorney General, U.S. Attorney, is right. Make sure you right before you execute somebody. Make sure you right before you put them in jail for 30 and 40 years. You're gonna go back to your comfortable house, like the causation of their poverty, the causation of their life, what they had to go through, and you black. The causation of what we got to deal with as people for 40 years in this country. We just arrived at violence. He just talked about a code of 1666 to control black people and to punish them and to make brutality to them. I'm a black man in America, and I ain't scared to say I'm a black man in America. And I ain't gonna buck to nobody, to no group, no organization, nothing. The black man in America was humiliated for 20 years. In this country, in America, the Indians and then us. You took their land, you worked us for free. Have a nice evening.
Thank you, sir.
Mohammed Idris.
Racism is dead, buried, dead and buried. It got executed in 1975. We have not experienced racism,
We are not experience racism. We are experience greed, jealousy, envy, and ignorance. Our country says that the majority rule. The majority of people are poor people, black and white. And the black and white poor people have to get together and they have the strength. When they say minority, they're helping the minority, they're talking with the rich because the rich is the minority. The poor is the majority. So poor white folks and poor black folks need to get together so we can get our share of this wonderful land. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jermaine Powell.
Hello, good evening. My name is Jermaine Powell. This is my first meeting here for this town hall, town city meeting, and I just want to get the experience of it. So I can at least give back to my community to know what's going on. Like I said, it's the first meeting, so I can at least know what I can do to help my community, neighborhood, and the city as well. So I hope to soak up a lot of information and knowledge and look to be back at some other meetings in the future.
Welcome. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you very much.
Where's the community?
What neighborhood do you live in, may I ask?
Well, I grew up on Long Branch, but I was born here in Charleston, and I stayed on Long Branch in West Ashley for a little while. And my father was a Marine, my mother was our nurse, and we moved to Atlanta. But then we came back, and I was living on Spring Street, about 3 years old, and then I got a grandma that's out in Clinical. So when I finished up, I kind of was staying out with my grandma for a while.
Okay.
And then did a little time in the military, did term in the military, and then I'm out. So I'm just back in the community in the city, just trying to want to give back,
Okay.
you know.
We'll try to connect you with one of our neighborhood folks. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Great.
Josh Dix.
Josh Dix, I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Charleston Trident Association of Realtors, and many of you have been supporting and celebrating Fair Housing Month, which is the month of April. I just want to say thank you for all the gestures and the comments regarding fair housing, but fair housing doesn't need to be just 1 month out of the year. There's a lot that we can be doing with regards to making housing more equitable for everyone, looking at the regulatory environment and how long it takes to permit projects into completion, our ability to create more housing in a denser, more sustainable environment is something that we need to look after. Y'all's launch of the zoning rewrite last week was a big step, and that'll be a multi-year project, but these are conversations that we need to continue having. And as we go down this path, as we look at how Union Pier is developed, how Ashley Landing is developed, Citadel Mall, we need to look at how we're using space and how we can more efficiently use space. And that is something that we have limited supply of here in Charleston, but people are coming by the day. We need to think responsibly and think how we're going to accommodate for all this potential growth that's coming our way. So I want to say thank you for the work that's been done, but there's a lot more ahead of us, and we look forward to partnering in future endeavors. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Andy Gladstein. Eric Hofstrom. Emily Schmidt.
Thing doesn't swivel.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm here today to give voice to the voiceless horses, specifically the horses who work in Charleston streets pulling tourists and carriages. The current practice of horses pulling the heaviest loads in the oppressive, grueling heat of Charleston is cruel, inhumane, and frankly embarrassing for the city and state. In the 21st century, the smell of horse manure and urine and the sight of collapsed horses in our streets is not a good look for a thriving city. Fortunately, we can give our citizens and tourists an alternative. A local entrepreneur, Kyle Kelly, recently unveiled an electric carriage that doesn't require horses, but still gives riders the charm of a carriage. The e-carriage gives Charlestonians and tourists a safe, eco-friendly, and pro-business alternative to horses and mules working in our streets. The only person who loses their job is the horse. We need one person on the city council or one person within the mayor's office to break with the carriage industry on this issue. One person to show that they have even the tiniest bit of compassion for these poor creatures, God's creatures, who are forced to endure oppressive working conditions through no choice of their own. Who will be pro-business and celebrate this local entrepreneur and give citizens and tourists who care an option? Who will help us attract tourists to our city who want an alternative to animal-drawn carriages? I know you don't want to ban anything. I understand that. But someone on this council can stand up and take a pro-free market, pro-business, pro-competition stance and bring some competition to this market by supporting the e-carriage. Charlestonians are organizing on this issue. We are building a movement to speak out against the dated, inhumane practice of carriage horses and demand the city take a pro-free market, pro-business, pro-competition stance and give us another choice for these carriage tours. Thank you.
Thank you.
And those were all the speakers that we had. We did receive some comments, and this is just a summary. All the comments in full were sent to council prior to the meeting. Sita Steele said that e-commerce wagons should be allowed as a safer and more humane alternative to carriage horses. It would cast a much more positive light on the city and present a model to other cities. Tony Daniels submitted comments stating that a road closure must be in the best interest of all and not a group of individuals. And those are all the comments we received.
All right. Did we miss anyone? Did anyone else like to be heard this evening that didn't come forward? Thank you for your comments, those that spoke, and appreciate your being with us tonight. So next up, we have just one appointment, an alternate to the BAR Large. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next on council communications, Councilmember Parker would like to chat with us about National Volunteer Week.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, rather than, we had a few proclamations on the schedule tonight, so rather, you know, it's hard to pinpoint just one or two volunteers in the city. So I just wanted to recognize that, you know, it is National Volunteer Week. I had Ms. Cook put this in your agenda. I would love everyone to take a look at it. This was shown at the master plan workshop, but I think everyone, you know, looking at these numbers, it's really important to see how important recreation is and has become in our city. Total volunteers in 2022 were 4,338. 4,000 volunteers. Absolutely. I mean, we do not have a recreation program without volunteers. So I thank you for just listening to me for a couple of minutes as budget season is, you know, it will quickly approach. And I just hope that we're taking this into consideration. We have a lot of moms, dads, grandmothers, grandfathers, guardians out there supporting our youth. And I just think it's so important that we continue to recognize that. You know, I have folks on the island who are raking and taking care of fields just so kids can play on them. I'm not happy about that. I think that the city, we have to do better for our recreation programs and taking, you know, managing these, all that we do in this department. Our staff, we know that we're limited. We know that we're spread thin. Please just keep that in mind on all of y'all's committees. You know, remember 4,338 volunteers. I think that's a pretty impressive number. And, you know, Miss Hutchinson was here from D. Norton, and I think she said it perfectly. I mean, this is how we got to keep these kids on the fields, keep them engaged. And these 4,338 volunteers are why they're out there. So thank y'all.
Right. Thank you. Any response or comments? We're very thankful, Councilmember, for all those volunteers. I don't know about y'all when you had kids, but I did it when my kids were coming along. And it's a rewarding kind of thing to do, but you do have to put some time into it, that's for sure. It's no question, our recreation department could not, nurture the thousands of kids that we do every spring and fall with our, team sports, without volunteers and coaches. There's one of them sitting right over there, Edward Jones. Thank you, sir, for your volunteerism. So moving on, next is our council committee reports. First up is Committee on Human Resources, Councilmember Gregory.
Sure. Yeah. The Human Resource Committee met on Thursday, April 13th, and we had 2 items under new business. One was staffing and retention report and employee wellness program. And in both areas, our numbers are headed in the right direction so far. We'll see how things are as we attempt to look at next year. The Medicare supplement was not discussed at that meeting. There was a meeting with the Director of Human Resources and someone from the Budget Division, and I met with the consultant last week to discuss the Medicare supplement program, which I think would be extremely beneficial to people 65 years old and older. And later in our next meeting, I'd like for the consultant to make that presentation to the body of a whole in human resources. Right now, we're just doing our research to determine whether or not that's possible. There is one city that's already doing it. So we have an example, and that's Horry County. I'm a little excited about it because it is the opportunity for us to give our seniors an option to save money as well as the city. And so hopefully at our next meeting, I'll be able to report on the Medicare supplement plan.
Great.
That concludes my report.
Thank you. Councilmember Parker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do just want to touch on the staffing and retention report. I know I hear it a lot, I know we're headed in the right direction, but I know that many departments, we are spread so thin. I mean, we have very few individuals serving an entire city. What are we thinking, thinking ahead? What are sort of our plans? Again, I brought up the ball fields. I mean, I know that we are just, sometimes, money isn't always the issue. I mean, it's in the budget. We just don't have the staff. So and I know that that's multiple departments. So I don't think, if we did a department by department, got those numbers, and that would be great. I know a lot, again, we keep saying that it's getting better, it's looking better, but I think the reality is they're still spread pretty thin. And I'm just wondering what our plan is moving forward. I know we talked about a pay study last year. But ultimately, how do we assist our department heads, our directors, all of this to get the work done? I mean, we don't have the staff, we have the money, we don't have the staff.
I think the only way to do it is something that some of our departments are already doing. And that is indefinite quantity contracts. Try to get some private folks to take care of the shortfall. Other than that, I know of no other way other than for us to keep our recruitment. I think things are gelling, but there's a connection between what we pay our employees and whether or not they could even afford to live here. So when we're recruiting people from different parts of the country to try to attract them here, I think one of the stumbling blocks is affordability. Even though we've had salary increases, affordability is still an issue. So to me, the only way that I think that we could take care of our shortfall is through private means, through indefinite quantity contracts where we can. And that's why I said that we're gonna have to really look at things as we approach this budget year. Because $17 as a minimum may still not be enough to be able to attract the kind of caliber of people that we want to work for the city. So there's still work ahead. And I do think it still has to do with salary and affordability. If the housing is not here for folks to move to, it doesn't make sense for them to take a job here. And I think that's a part of our dilemma. I hope I answered your question.
All right.
Yeah. Oh, can I?
Yeah, sure.
Thank you, Mr.
Councilmember Parker.
Absolutely. I was just hoping for the, the rest of 2023, we're either putting that pay study, out, are we considering it? Are we going to budget for it? Are we, is it something we're still going to discuss? I mean, I know that I think all of us agree and let our department heads know that we're here and we are ready and willing to see those contracts. If there's additional work that needs to be done that our staff can't get to by no fault of our staff. I mean, we know that they're working hard. They're doing multiple jobs at times, but ultimately we have services that we need to provide to our citizens. And, we're all in agreement that our department heads are, we're ready and willing to take on those, unfortunately, those bids, and they're expensive. But I know I just want to see some action. What are we gonna propose in the coming years to kind of fill those gaps?
And I do think that that's the importance of the ad hoc committee.
I do want Ms. Wharton to address the issue you raised about the pay study. In the meantime, I did want to share with everyone, we're continuing to recruit. Hope y'all got the flyer. We sent it out to everybody. Please, it's not too late tonight to post it on your social media. We have our job fair tomorrow at the Gilliard. All our departments are going to be represented. We've had a net increase of about 50 employees so far this year, and we're looking to hire more. So you are all empowered to be recruiting agents for the city of Charleston. Let your friends and neighbors know we're still hiring. Amy?
So we are putting together an RFP for a compensation study. So I would say probably within the next couple of weeks that will be put out. So we'll hopefully get that fairly quickly.
There you go. All right.
Thank you, but that concludes.
All right. Thank you much. Any other comments on human resources? Hearing none. Next is our committee on recreation. Councilmember Shealy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Last Monday of last week, our Committee on Recreation met at 4:00 p.m., April 17th. And we had Pegeen Hanrahan join us at the beginning of the meeting. And she mentioned that she is starting to talk with several of the council members one-on-one, or maybe 2 or 3 at a time, about the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. And Jason Kronsberg did give us an update. Want to remind you that he sent out an email back on Friday, April 14th, about the introduction to the master plan in chapters 7 and 8, which are the most important parts of our next steps. But he needs us to, me too, I'm just as guilty. I haven't responded either, but he needs to get our top 2 or 3, priority things out of each district, if you would, and get those back to him. But he sent out that draft project list and just asked that each of you come up with that and get it back to him. There was great discussions in our meeting about what types of recommendations we should make as well. But if you haven't had your meeting with Ms. Hanrahan, please reach out and do that if you would as well. We also heard from Justin Braddock, our enterprise manager. He gave us a great update. He has spent his first 90 days coming on board with the city of Charleston by building a foundation and a platform. He's met with Tom O'Rourke on what should be expected from the master plan, and he's focusing on opportunities for our city of Charleston residents. And he's put together a business plan and a pro forma and had it approved. And he's built a network. I thought this was pretty impressive. He's built a network of 963 decision makers in the community. And he's had a one-on-one conversation with 196 of those decision makers. And those are going to be ongoing long-term discussions that he's going to have. but he's so far brought in 22,500 in sponsorships and was expecting another 7,500 to be in very soon for a total of about $30,000 so far. And he's brought in another $15,000 of in-kind value through some marketing that he's got through some media advertising. And he has about $90,000 worth of proposals being reviewed by decision makers that he just hasn't heard back from yet. So he also has 65,000 that's committed, that is going to be committed for 2024 already. So on top of the sponsorships, he's kind of revamping our marketing. He's showing the value and the impact of recreation being the first line of impacting a child's physical development and social development. So City of Charleston Recreation, he's trying to show is more than just a babysitting service or somewhere where you can send your kid to catch a break. So he's doing a great job with a lot of that. He's got a story that he's telling on how we're impacting the lives of children in the city, and we're going to see a lot more of that. But he feels like it's going to increase the value of the program and also will increase the number of, not only the number, but the amount of money we have in sponsorships for his program. So Laurie Yarborough let us know that there's an account that these funds will be put into or are being put into, and that those will go back into our programs and uses will be identified. Councilmember Parker brought up great ideas, mentioning the staffing capacity and taking care of maintenance on fields. And she asked if that could be a possible place for some of these funds to go back into for maybe helping take care of our fields through having those enterprise funds be able to contract some of that out where we're having a shortfall, like we were saying. So, the number of participants is high in our recreation department right now, and it's continuing to climb. So the Parks Department's really kind of fighting an uphill battle. Jason and his crowd are for the demand for field and facilities maintenance. So nothing to vote on this. It was just mainly for information only, but a great report and great meeting. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All right, next up is our joint committee, a historic meeting of our Planning Commission and Community Development Committee. Councilmember Mitchell.
Yes, on April 20th at a little past 3 p.m., you had a joint meeting with the Community Development Committee and the Planning Commission. And I think in attendance, it was approximately 100 people there on site in that particular meeting. And we had the Planning Commission, everyone was looking at the affordable housing, the workforce affordable housing piece. And the biggest thing that came out of that meeting was that they figured that we should have more units, there should be more units on site with the state porters planning. But I think right now they're planning on 50 units, but everyone there stated that they need more units on site. They would like to see more units on site. And even the Planning Commission said it, the people everyone who came up to the mic and the citizens participation point, they said the same thing. We reiterated the same thing. So that's one thing we got to look at very seriously. And this meeting was formed and came together because we wanted to Community Development Committee to be able to make a song and judge decision when it comes back on voting what we think we need to do so far as the port side is concerned about the housing piece. This is only reference to the housing piece. So that's what it was. And there's no action was taken on that. And then you have it was a big discussion. We had public participation, like I stated, we had 30 people there. And I gave everyone a minute to speak. And everyone got everything out they wanted to say. And I also asked if anyone else wanted to say anything that wasn't done. So everyone was pleased and they got everything they wanted to do out. But the main thing is that the voice was being heard, the voice was being heard, and they were satisfied with that. But the thing is, we have to look at that site very seriously when it comes to the affordable housing piece, very seriously. It's a big development that's going to happen, and 50 units will not be enough. Also, they're giving the housing authorities a couple $1 million to build housing on the corner of Hughie and Meeting, and that's a part of the affordable housing piece. But we still would like to see more housing on site, and that's the stand of the
that
information on that particular joint meeting. And we giving them response, and they did a good job explaining what they're planning on doing. So we have to make that decision when it comes back to community development before it comes back to the full council.
That's right.
So it's no action to be taken on that particular joint meeting.
Any
Then we could try-
questions or comments about that? Councilmember Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And, Mr. Chairman, I was present at that joint meeting. It was a very long, actually, the presentation from the State Ports Authority was short. There was more discussion and input from the community, as you mentioned. Is the committee, your committee, going to come back with a specific recommendation as to a minimal number of affordable units?
That's why I was stating that this will come back to the community development and we will vote on it one way or the other and make recommendation if they don't come back with more units. If the community development committee said, no, we want to see more units there, then that's going to hold it up because that's what we're going to look, that's what we're looking for. And everyone was saying the same thing. You need more than 50 units on site at that particular site. And that's what we're looking. So this was really for the community development and the planning commission to hear and make decisions and make some point on what they feel about this, what the port is proposing. And they're proposing only 50 units. And we were saying to them that we need more. We want to see more than 50 units on site. Also, although they're doing some units off site, even Washington Street, meeting in Washington Street, they want to put something there, give us some space there to build some housing there. But we still want more units on site. And this is what everyone is saying. And if you listen to everyone that came to that mic, the 30 people that came to that site, they said the same thing. So this given the CD committee something to think about when they make a decision when it comes back to us.
All right, Councilmember Gregory.
I mean, any chance that I can say something very good about staff and what they do?
Well, yes, and
Okay.
in fact, they are responding
Right.
directly to the Ports Authority.
Correct.
Good
And
comment.
our director of housing and community development spoke. And in response to your question, I think she was very specific in terms of where the administration and where our community development department stands on the number. And while there is no number that's out there, trust me, what is being discussed is substantially more on site than 50 units. I mean, if you just use our formula of 20% affordable, which is not required of a PUD. However, we're talking about 300 something units on site. So there are some discussions being had with respect to the number. And hopefully once we get back, as the chairman has said, to community development, we'll have something to come to the body of the whole.
And it'll come back to both the Planning Commission and to City Council as
Correct.
well,
And-
ultimately. Councilmember Shea.
And Mr. Mayor, in y'all's response, I heard all those comments and I was present for that. But at some point, and maybe we'll just wait until our staff comes back with the number, but I think the community to move this project along, because this is going to fall on our lap sooner or later. But the project's going to come to us sooner or later. But at some point in time, we've heard these numbers and we've heard more than 50. I've heard that 1,000 times, more than 50. So that mean, like you said, a 20% number? Does it mean 200 units? Does it mean 51 units? But I think at some point, we need to have a recommendation from either staff or from the Community Development Committee as to either a range or to a specific number. I mean, I heard the comments made, and I heard the presentation that our director made about that, but I think it just fair to say that we have some clarity as to what we're looking for. There's other considerations that are going to go into this PUD, obviously. I sat and listened to the Traffic and Transportation Committee report on that. There's a lot of moving parts to when this PUD is going to come to our attention. But we haven't heard specifics, and I think and I'm not saying that we need to hear that tonight. I'm not asking for that. But at some point in time, I think it's just fair for us to have more clarity as to where we're headed with this and what is going to be that magic number.
Well,
If I may add at this point that the Port Authority did give specifics in their presentation, and I assure you, Ms. Johnson has replied to them with specifics that were, consistent with the comments that were made at the at the meeting the other week. Councilmember Sacrum.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to provide a little additional context and some thoughts on my end. I did get a chance to meet with the developer. I've spoken with my neighborhood association, the Wagner Terrace Neighborhood Association, North Central. The big feedback that I've shared with them is more affordable housing, more green space, and less density. So I say this with all due respect to those that are listening to the project, that some of those run counter to each other.
That's right.
So I think it's important to have this conversation and not in a vacuum and isolated on the number of housing units, but to include in the conversation that when you pull from one, something else has got to give somewhere else. So I just wanted to share that it's important to have the conversation around housing, not in a vacuum, that it needs to be contextual with the other requests that are coming in from our community. And I'm all for more affordable housing. That's going to require another lever to be pressed if we add more housing.
Absolutely.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilmember
I know
Gregg.
what we are saying.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councilmember Mitchell.
Oh, well, somebody else want to speak? I can.
Yeah, Councilmember Gregg wanted to make a comment.
I spent some time with the developer, as well as folks from the Ports Authority, with Mr. Waring last week. And I came away impressed with what they were offering. So we're talking a lot about these 50 housing units on site, but in addition, 72 more units at Hugie Street, 85 units there at Washington Street. And the big one that I think is maybe not, we're not focusing on is a 1% transfer fee on every sale in the PUD. That's going to generate a significant amount of money that we as the city can use to develop affordable housing anywhere where we get the most bang for the buck, that produces the most amount of units that we as a council and as staff deem is the best use of that money. So maybe it's not perfect, but I feel like it's a really good start. I mean, that if you add up all those numbers, it's over 320 units, not including what we could purchase with this 1% transfer fee. So it's a significant leap into affordable housing.
Councilmember Mitchell.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, I thank all my colleagues with what they're talking about, spreading this around and doing this. I met with the developer when they first came. I was the first council member that they contacted when they came here. And I said, I understand what you're saying. This is not district I represent. It's Councilman Seekings. I said, no, we want to talk with you. I met with them 4 times. And I told them the big piece going to be in there is affordable housing. Let me tell you something about affordable housing in the city of Charleston. We have lost a lot of it. See, we are talking about things that they really don't know because they haven't been in this community and seeing what we have lost. We are talking about trying to get 1,600 more units in the city of Charleston. They're talking about giving us this, giving us that. But the people in the city of Charleston deserve to have more units there on site also. That property was given to them too. The same like we get some properties and we try to do the best we can with putting affordable housing. And that's all we're saying. 50 units is a slap in the face sometime with the community, not just only us sitting here. It's the community. They stood up there and said it. I didn't make a motion. I told them what we are talking about, and everyone that came to that mic. And probably you all might not hearing what's happening in the community and what they're saying also, but I'm hearing it every day. But everyone that came to that mic, the 30 people that came to that mic to speak, everyone said the same thing. Everyone in the planning commission said the same thing. They're looking for more on site. Sure, we can have units off site. They're always talking about off site and building everything there, but how about the people who's living here and born and raised? I say people sometimes we are forgetting, but the people born and raised here that can't stay here, and we need more affordable housing. We're talking about it every time on council to provide more affordable housing, teachers, lawyers, doctors, or whatever the case may be here in the city. And then we'll start talking about some other things that, they're putting housing over here. That's not the case. You know, we're still part of the city of Charleston. We all are here still part of the city of Charleston too. We want to see some things that some of our constituents can stay there too. And we're talking about the 30 years. We got to look at that 30-year too. You know how quick 30 years go by? And then that's going to go to the market rate. So all these things we got to take in consideration when we're making these decisions and looking at it. And be serious about it. And that's all I'm saying so far as that is concerned. But but there's no action to be taken on it. We are looking at, it's going to come back to the community development, and the community development will make the decision along with the planning commission, because the planning commission is going to make the decision, and we'll see what come about it. We'll have a definite number. Mr. Yana Johnson had already spoke and advised what she was looking for so far as affordability is concerned, more housing is concerned. And putting with that, and what they want to give us with the housing authority unit, there could be more units. And that's all it's about. People are moving here every day. We got to have affordability. We got to have people to stay here and work in this. We talking about traffic coming in. We got to do a little better. So far as housing is concerned, we got to do better.
So Councilmember Mitchell, right back to you, because we also had a special committee on community development just yesterday.
Yes.
Need for you to report out on that as well.
Right. Yes, we had a special community development meeting. It was called on yesterday at 2 p.m. And only we had one ordinance that we was dealing with was ordinance to amend chapter 54 of the Code of the City of Charleston, zoning ordinance by revising section 54-220 pertaining to the conference space requirements in the accommodation overlay zone district in the peninsula portion of the City of Charleston. And that was approved by the committee. And that's and we also had a presentation about affordable housing by the Point Bill developer Barry Company, which was a very good presentation they did. So the only item that we had to vote on or have a motion on was item A, and ask for approval of item A.
All right. And we've just given that first reading as well earlier, but all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Any other discussion or comments on this committee report? Hearing none. Next up is our Committee on Public Works. Councilmember Waring.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Committee didn't meet on yesterday. All actionable items passed unanimous. I would like Mr. Fountain, if he would, just to touch bases on briefly on the Concord Pump Station and an update on brick arches. While he's coming to the microphone, we did have a spirited conversation last meeting and somewhat, not as much this meeting, but on 3rd Avenue at 2A Gordon Street. That public right of way, we voted, we didn't vote because the application was withdrawn for the gate, but the consensus was obviously to keep it open for the public, put up proper signage. Possibly, we had some issues with vandalism at a new bridge. Sometimes I call it Brantley Bridge, but Brantley Moody fought very hard to get the money for this bridge on Ashley Plantation Road, but it's actually named after Paul Walker, constituent. But anyway, we had people coming at all times of night, full day in the morning, painting very negative verbiages on that bridge. And our police department actually put up a camera, an infrared camera that to basically catch the perpetrator. Let's put it like this: the cameras went up, and all of a sudden it stopped. So I suggested we get in contact with our very professional police department to put up a camera because apparently there have been some negative activities dealing with bicycles and things like that. But if there's some bad actors out there on a dead end, one way in and out, they certainly can be caught. The third thing was they've had some volunteers that planted some marsh grass in an attempt to hold off erosion. So I would hope that the city, Mr. Kronberg back there with his team has got one more thing on his 99 list of things to do, but hopefully we can coordinate with those volunteers to plant some grass or whatever measures we could take to at least slow the erosion. Mr. Fountain, okay, go ahead.
Councilmember Sacklin, and then Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, on 208 in particular, because there have been a number of allegations that things are being stolen, ladders, this, that, and the other, but there's no police report. They never even call the police. So a number of the things that they're saying, suspect, And I think it's more to try and justify their position. Because I was very, very clear, if all this illegal activity is going on back here, where are your police report? Show them to me. Okay, they couldn't. Just wanted to put that for the.
Gotcha. Councilmember Sacre.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to piggyback on Councilman Waring's suggestion. I was not there for Sunday's meeting, but it's my understanding it was a bit fractious and boisterous. I do think some sort of environmental effort might bring the community and the parties and the neighbors kind of back together on some focused effort. Because my conversations with both of the feuding neighbors, that was the one common theme was, we love this and it's degraded a little bit. There's been some erosion. So anything we can do to support that, I think would be helpful for those neighbors.
Right. And I committed, we will have staff both from the planting of the bank and the wetlands to see what we can do with community groups to enhance it.
Yeah, thank you, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fountain. Well, I'll say this now, the meeting, we really was tested, but I would say it was very respectful. A couple of community members had opportunity to speak both times, but it was very respectful conversations on yesterday.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we did have two updates. Yesterday, we had the first one was on the Concord Street Pump Station. We did a relatively brief presentation on the history of that station and what it serves. It's obviously, we've talked about this quite a bit, the first deep tunnel system that the stormwater department constructed in the city. It's called Calhoun East. It serves the corridor that runs along Calhoun Street, basically from the aquarium out to Marion Square, and then it turns and goes up Meeting Street, all those to about to the visitor center. And then that was constructed in the very late 90s, of the pump station coming in the early 2000s. We did review some photos that we had dug out of the archives back when we were still doing hand taken photography in a studio, which is interesting, but showing that how severe the flooding was in those locations, because it's something we're not used to anymore, that we're used to the pump station operating and keeping those intersections from going underwater, especially East Bay and Calhoun was the one that was well known for any kind of small rainstorm leading to very deep flooding blocking that intersection. In the early 2010s, the city did the Market Street tunnel extension project through Union Pier, brought a deep tunnel down, and then that tunnel turns and goes under the market. And if you walk between the market sheds on the north-south running streets, you'll see the large concrete structures with great inlets on top of them that are drop shafts connected into that deep tunnel, which is why you no longer see people kayaking through the market. It does still flood because we have not yet built the surface conveyance improvements on top of those shafts. That's a project that's been in design for some time. And we're currently working with Dominion on the power undergrounding plan for that corridor. That's getting pretty close to being accomplished, and we'll be able to look into that construction approach again. But again, the reason we have a limited flood depth is because once the water gets deep enough to flow to those inlets, there is a deep tunnel system that pulls that water to the pump station. The pump station is the very pretty brick building with a copper roof sitting in front of the IAM, the International African American Museum. That pump station again was built almost 25 years ago now, and has been having some serious reliability issues, as we've talked about. It works. I mean, we have backup pumps, we have it set up properly, but we really have our optimum performance on that station with everything running full 4 pumps running to provide maximum level of service. So we've been working over the last couple of years due to some of those reliability challenges to upfit the station, right? To say it's 25 years old, we basically hit end of service life. We need to come back and restore that pump station. We've had a number of items come through council about this. We did an initial preliminary engineering report, came up with some different options, came back with a design contract, progressed the design contract, decided to go the construction manager at risk approach, which the council has approved, and brought the construction manager at risk firm on board for pre-construction services, which is basically where they partner with our design team, the design engineer, to come up with a final plan, eventually going to a guaranteed maximum price approach and then build the project. So we are now at a stage where we are negotiating we call it an early procurement package, similar to what we've done with Spring Fishburne Phase 5, where we're going to buy upfront the very long lead time items. Is a little bit different that Spring Fishburne is a traditional design bid build project where we do the design, then it gets sent out as a lowest bidder approach. So when we do early procurement on that, we purchase the pumps, right? We go through our procurement process and buy the pumps. With a CMAR approach, because you have the contractor on board already, the contractor basically enters an early procurement contract to be able to purchase the, in this case, also the pumps and then the major electrical equipment for the station. So that is what we're working through right now. We expect to bring that to council for consideration the next month or so. And that will let us buy those long lead time items again, to be able to basically shift to a GMP, negotiate GMP and hopefully start of construction by this fall. Then construction will continue out through at least middle of 2025. It's a very, very tight site with the IAM sitting behind it and the station and obviously Concord Street. So it's a relatively long construction process because we also have to keep the pump station running throughout the entire construction process. So we don't see any recurrent flooding while we're doing those upfits. So I just wanted to bring everyone up to speed. There's a slightly more detailed presentation with graphics and the Public Works Utilities Committee, if anyone needs to go back and take a look at it. And any questions or comments on that item, or I'll switch over to the brick arches. Okay. And it's a relatively expensive project. We're expecting somewhere in the order of $3 million just for the early procurement package. So that's why we're trying to make sure everyone's updated and has time to ask any questions or get up to speed on it if they need to. The second item was the brick arches. So you'll recall at a meeting a month and a half ago, we talked about a Army Corps of Engineering authorization that Representative Mason supported for about $20 million of stormwater projects through the WARDA bill, the Army Corps of Engineer WARDA bill. The way those WARDA bills work is you have an authorization. Once there is an authorization, it gives the Army Corps the option to apply for appropriations, which is the actual funding off of those authorizations. So you have an authorization to give you any money. It just gives you the ability to apply for money. So we had put in a series of projects, as we discussed, for consideration by the Corps and by the elected officials, federal elected officials. We did have success with Senator Graham's office supporting a $5 million appropriation request, not yet a funded appropriation, but a request for the brick arch retrofit work that we're doing on the peninsula. So that is being progressed by the Army Corps of Engineers for submission of the WARDA package. They will be asking us, they are asking us for a letter of intent, where basically we do the same thing we've talked about with a series of other Army Corps projects, where we can say, yes, we would like to be the local sponsor on this project. We intend to advance the project. We have the financial capacity to be able to do the project. And then if it is appropriated, we then negotiate the final agreement with the Corps, similar to what we just did with the MUSC pump station project, to say, yes, we'd like to move forward. So it's not binding in the sense that there's still an option to back out, but it is certainly a clear intent, hence the letter of intent terminology, that you would like to move forward. So we'll be bringing that to council also at the next council meeting for consideration. It would be a $5 million total project with a 75-25 cost split, with the Corps providing 75%. We did mention at the meeting as well on the current brick arch project, which we started down on Limehouse Street, turned the corner, came up Logan and Cumming. We have now gotten to Wentworth Street with that work. We are trying with the current funding this year, hopefully to get just south of Calhoun Street. That's the goal where we are now. But we've hit a couple of major flood intersections already with that work, seen some significant improvements during heavy rain events, Bufane being kind of the most noticeable generally. But if we can get through that kind of Wentworth to Calhoun corridor, we'll pick up another couple areas of pretty steady flooding. So it's been a great investment, but it would be even better to have someone else contribute some significant money into that work.
Thank you, Mr. Fallon.
Thank you, Chairman.
Councilmember Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And Mr. Chairman, I may be jumping ahead. This may be coming up on a Public Works, but I know we just received an email from the James Island Public Service District. So if I'm not mistaken, the SCIP grant money was awarded, and there's some pretty significant numbers in there. James Island Public Service District was awarded $8.7 million for a public sewer expansion. CWS, $10 million, an upgraded sewer tunnel in West Ashley, I believe. So that's city of Charleston area, right? Charleston County, Central Park culvert, 3.4 million. And the city of Charleston, 10 million for the King Street pump station, if I'm not
That's right, for
mistaken.
the King and Eugene project, that's correct.
So pretty substantial.
I was actually saving the best for
Oh, I'm
last. I was-
sorry.
I was- I was gonna- That actually came.
And if he hadn't said it, I was
Yeah,
gonna say it.
That's
We are all
okay.
happy about this.
I was saving the best for last for the mayor to actually share that with everybody, but,
Back to Councilmember Warren.
Yeah.
But thank you for sharing that.
no, it's okay. It's okay.
It
We all
wasn't on
involved.
the agenda. I just wanted to make sure those were some pretty significant numbers. So
Very
I'm-
significant numbers. But it came through when we had the meeting and of course the mayor shared that with the whole committee. And I don't know if there were any other points you wanted to add today. I was saving that for the mayor
Right.
this year.
Councilmember Gregory.
Yeah, thanks, Councilmember. And because I had a specific question on one of the grants, and that's the Central Park. That's the 3.5, I think, mil grant. Is that in addition to what we're doing with Wamba area?
That's correct. So the county and the city, because of the overlapping jurisdictions,
Yeah.
we had sort of split is not quite the right word, but each taken a portion of
I
the
remember.
improvements. So the county the city and county had applied for CTC funding that the county had basically taken that initial funding, CTC and TSD funding, and taken that funding and done the design work for the what's the west half, which is basically where Hollings Avenue sits and drainage that comes down there. That's where you see the tidal overtopping on Central Park Road. That funding is to advance the county's portion of the project work to try to elevate that section of Central Park Road to avoid the tidal flooding. And they're looking as well at check valves to try to limit how much of that tidal intrusion they get.
The folks over there will be happy to hear that. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's right. So, Council.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, the ayes have it.
And,
Councilmember Mitchell.
But, Mr. Mayor and Councilman, I'm happy to see King and UG Street is there. $10 million. This was going on ever since I grew up. And, one thing, Councilman Lewis, when he was here, he was fighting for this, and he and I was fighting for this the whole time since we was here, King and Hughie. And I was living there on that corner right by King and Hughie for 39 years. And it was flooding. We used to have, when they had a big flood, the rescue squad had to come and get a boat, and put it in a boat in front of my door to get the people at the service station. That's how bad the flooding is on the corner of King and Hughie when it gets rained. So it's a long time coming. And my
So-
flood insurance is very, very high.
So altogether, as pointed out by Councilmember Parker, it's over $30 million admittedly divided up between the city, Charleston Water Service, James Island Public Service District, and Charleston County, but all served for infrastructure for sewer, stormwater, and water quality as well. That's one of the main facets of the James Island Public Service District grant. I want to remind everybody that all of this money, even though it's funneled through the state, and we're thankful for the administration of it, came from ARPA funds, came from the American Rescue Plan that Congress approved. And so we're thankful for that act. It really it's coming down and hitting the road. Two more comments I would make, and one I was reminded, Councilmember Waring, with the update on the Concord pump station. You know, nobody complains about places that don't flood anymore, you know, and they don't notice it. But I was working for the city in the 90s when we were building that deep tunnel system down Meeting Street, Calhoun over to Concord Street, and the corner of East Bay and Calhoun Street. If you had just 1 or 2 inches of rain, you'd have 1 or 2 feet of water on that corner. And there was a new building that was going up there on the corner, and the developer was fussing at Mayor Riley because the completion of the tunnel took about 1.5 years, maybe even 2 years longer than he originally thought. So the building was finished and it was still flooding when he thought that the project would be over with. But it just shows you that gee, when that problem goes away and you spent lots of money, nobody seems to notice it anymore. And the same thing is happening now with Cumming Street and Bufane and Cumming Street and Wentworth because of the efforts of the brick archway tunnels. The same thing will happen at King and Hughie Street, And we're going to get to that day where this is going to be, but a few people remember that that intersection used to clog up the whole city every time it rained, right? So one by one, we're knocking these intersections down. And I ride across the Septima Clark Parkway from West Ashley open often. And I note that street, Cherry Street, where a Burger King used to be. And it took them a while to find all the places where the tidal water was getting in. But now that that tunnel is open and working by gravity, this is Fishburne Spring Street Tunnel. You go by a Cherry Street, the next high tide over 7 feet, and guess what? There's no tidal water on the street. There's no tidal water on the street. And y'all, anything over 7 foot, and you'd have that street covered up with water, right? So now you get a lot for $150 million, right? There's no water on Cherry Street, but the same is true at President Street and Septima Clark Parkway. That little corner store that would get 1 to 2 feet of water just with a afternoon shower. It's been dry for the last couple of months when we had a decent rain. I mean, at least it flows off quickly. So these things are really starting to make a difference. And that $10 million and that $3.4 million makes a huge difference, because that means money we can spend somewhere else. Where every dollar that we get from be it the authorization from the Werder bill, if we get that $3.75 million to keep going with the archway cleanup and fortification, not only gets that job done, but that's work we need to do. And that's money we would have had to spend. So now we can spend that money, at doo-wop or some other needed project in the city. So it's all good news. And, but I just thought I'd share those observations, because these intersections do make a difference. But it is funny 10, 20 years later, how we don't remember how it used to flood all the time. And that's what we want to see. All right, next up, our Committee on Ways and Means, Councilmember Gregory. All right, and it was as is, no amendments. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next up, bills for second reading.
1 through 6, move.
We got 1 through 6, right? Okay. Any discussion, questions on any of those? 1 through 6. Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Now for third reading,
for approval.
ratification. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We have one bill up for first reading, and that's a zoning matter. Do we have Mr. Morgan or someone from legal to tell us about this one?
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is a property that is, you gave first reading to earlier for annexation. And this would give it zoning, general business zoning, so that they can be accelerating through the process.
All right, any
Move for approval.
any discussion on this one? All right, somebody give me just a little bit of discussion on it, some comment. Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. So our Barbadian friends are meeting up where Dwayne Green is a member of a outfit or a place up on Upper Meeting Street called the Wanderer, I think. Wanderer. Y'all know where that is? Yeah, so if anyone would like to join our friends from Barbados, they'll be up there, and they might even have a sample of their rum punch, in case you're interested. Any further business to come before us tonight? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.